Have you guys ever been in a storm before? Like a physical storm? It can be pretty scary, can't it? I was hunting, and where we were hunting, there was a snow and windstorm. And so it was like, you could hear trees cracking and stuff like that. So of course we go and find ourselves sitting at the base of a tree and waiting to see any moose come through. And I didn't see anything, but like where I was sitting, I was like leaning up against a tree, and snow was piling up because it was so snowy, but the tree was so big that where I was, snow wasn't hitting me. Later that night, I leave, come back the next morning, and the tree that I was sitting at was blown over. Yeah, pretty scary, pretty spooky stuff. Storms are scary. Storms, you can lose your bearings in a storm. It's hard to see through to the other side. It's hard to see through to the other side. A few years back, I went to St. Lucia with my wife's family. And at our resort, we could rent these little catamaran sailboats. But first you had to learn how to use them and like pass a little test. So my brother-in-law and I, we got on there, like first thing we did, passed the test, and then thought, okay, maybe my wife wants to go out for little putts in the bay. And she did. But we didn't want to stay in the little cove that we were in. We wanted to go for open ocean. And so my wife gets on. She doesn't love the ocean at like the best of times. So like she loves the beauty of it. Like a beach is nice, but she doesn't want to play around with sharks. So we get on there and we start going. She's like, where are we going? And my brother-in-law is just like, shh, close your eyes. She's like, no. So we turned around, dropped her off, and then we got going. And we passed like the little waves, and then we got into little swells, and then we got into really big swells, and we were at it. We weren't really paying attention to how long we were out for. We were just trying to go. And when we were at the bottom of the swell, we couldn't see anything besides water. Like it was just big walls of water all around us. And we kind of look at each other like, this is probably too far. And then we get up and we could see back to shore, but we couldn't recognize any landmarks. We were so far out, and between us and the shore was like all the pleasure crafts. So like the people fishing or like just boating around on their little motorboats. Like we were not quite in the shipping routes, but we were flirting with it. There was the only boats that were close to us were like 200-foot long yachts. Like we were way too far out. And it was pretty scary being out there, trying to get back. And for a moment, we didn't think we were going to be able to, because when we learned how to catch wind and stuff like that, we had to use points of reference. And we couldn't see anything anymore. So we eventually figured it out. I mean, I'm here. I have 2 kids now. So, like, we made it. It's okay. But when you're in a storm, you can feel overwhelmed. Earlier in this series, we've talked about different types of storms. We've talked about storms that come from being disobedient to the Lord. We've talked about storms that just come. But today I want to talk about storms that come from obedience to the Lord. If you flip with me to Matthew chapter 8, verse 23 and 27. Matthew 8, 23 to 27. It says, "Then he," being Jesus, "got into the boat, and his disciples followed him. Suddenly a furious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, 'Lord, save us, we're going to drown.' He replied, 'You of little faith, why are you so afraid?' Then he got up, rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, 'What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him.'" Today I want to preach a message called Little Faith. Little faith. The first time I read this, I thought to myself, Jesus is kind of throwing shade at them, or it sounds like he's got an angry tone with them. But I was wrong. The tone that Jesus has for the disciples is, he's just stating the obvious. You guys have little faith. You're afraid. Like, you don't need to be afraid. I think little faith is a great place to be. So today I want to talk about how little faith turns into great faith. But you follow a few steps. So the first step of little faith is Draw near to Jesus. The first step of little faith is to draw near to Jesus. The disciples, they would have had to get close to him before they follow him. Can we just give it up for Nil? Real quick, father of three. Woo! Nil, what were you doing last night? Holding hands, yeah. And anything else you want to share with the crowd? Woo! Guys, this is more exciting than that. Anyways, sorry, Nil. I thought people would have been excited for you. I'm excited for you guys. Dustin Jr., Tessa Jr. would be great names. I'm just suggesting that. But your guys' choice, no pressure. Anyways, but the first step is to draw near to Jesus. First step of little faith is to draw near to Jesus. If we look in Luke chapter 19, there's a good picture of what it is to draw near to Jesus. So Luke 19, verse 1, it says this: Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man there by the name of Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. Two things to note about Zacchaeus. He was very short. Very short. I don't know if that's the Bible just casting shade on the short kings, as they say these days, but he was short. And he was also a chief tax collector, which meant that he had authority from the Romans to take taxes from the Jewish people. So he had like the backing of like the centurions, and he could just take whatever he wanted as long as he didn't get caught. So nobody liked him. And they mentioned he was short. It says he wanted to see Jesus, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. Tess and I, we used to live right beside Rogers Arena. And our front door, you could see the players' entrance to Rogers Arena. So if we came out the front door, we could tell what was happening in the stadium that day. So like if someone didn't have a shirt on, had face paint, and like really tight pants, we knew that WrestleMania was happening. But if someone had like Canucks gear decked out, we knew that the Canucks were playing that night. And it was always like an interesting kind of combo of people. It was usually like fathers and their little kids. The dad usually had like a Canucks hat or whatever team they were playing, their hat. And then the kid had like full on gear. Like they had the helmet, they had like skates walking like in their hand, they had gloves, they had sticks. And you could tell the dads didn't really want to be there. They just loved their kids. And the kids were so excited to meet the players. So you'd have like kids waiting, and the kids would always be in front and the dads would be behind. Not so for Zacchaeus. Even though Zacchaeus was about the same height as the kids, they didn't like him, so they probably just didn't let him through, kind of gave hips and stuff like that so he couldn't get through. But what would happen is the dads would always be like the player would come, and the dads would be like, oh, excuse me. And the players didn't want any of it. They were locked in. They had headphones on, like hoods on, and were like ready to go and play. But the moment that they saw a kid, headphones came off. They went and signed jerseys and sticks and pictures, took pictures, and it was cool to see, because that's such a great picture of what it is to draw near. Like they drew near to the players, and then there was a response. In the same way, Zacchaeus drew near to Jesus. The same way the disciples drew near to Jesus. So it says this: when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of sinners. Man, Zacchaeus wasn't a popular fellow. Everyone knew him, but he wasn't popular. But it doesn't really matter what everyone was thinking. Kind of matters what Jesus was thinking. See, the first step is to draw near. Maybe you're here and you're thinking to yourself, my understanding of Jesus is he only really likes good people. Or like, I have to act a certain way to belong. Or I have to do a certain amount of things. The reality is the best we can bring is like filthy rags compared to him. The best we have isn't good. So he invites himself to Zacchaeus' house. And Zacchaeus gets proximity with Jesus. And this is what an encounter with Jesus looks like. This is what, when he's drawn near to Jesus, the Bible says that Jesus stands at the door of our heart and knocks. We just have to let him in. This is what letting him in looks like. It says this, "But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, 'Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount.' Jesus said to him, 'Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save that which was lost.'" I'm not the best at math, but to give half of what you have, and then to pay back anyone who you've wronged 4 times the amount, you must have, like, when he stole all that money from people, he must have invested in, like, Bitcoin early days to be able to pay back that much. Like, to me, it doesn't make much sense. But what I do see is that once he had little faith, drew near to Jesus, had an encounter with Jesus, and it changed everything. What he valued most was, I think, finances. I think he held that really close to the chest. I think it probably had too big of a place in his life. And the moment that he has an encounter with Jesus, suddenly that doesn't matter as much. He no longer wants to cheat people. He no longer wants to steal from people. And he wants to give it all away and make Jesus the Lord of his life. And Jesus' response is, salvation has come to this house because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save that which was lost. So that first little step of little faith is to draw near. The second step of little faith is to follow Jesus. If we flip to Matthew chapter 11 and verse 28, this is what following Jesus looks like. Matthew 11:28. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." I love that. The picture that it gives is shoulder to shoulder. It's not like one trailing behind the other. The picture would be 2 oxen walking side by side. Back in those days, when you had a team of oxen, there was always a lead oxen that took all of the weight and knew how to go, knew the cadence, knew the route, knew how to pull a plow. And then there was a learning oxen who learned how to take weight from the lead oxen, learned how to walk in step, learned how to carry their own weight. Who here is on TikTok? Few people? Guys, I was expecting way more people in this service. Thank you, Taylor. I was expecting way more people in this service to be on TikTok than the first service. First service, there was like 3 people. Now there's like 4 people. So, okay. Anyways, for you who don't know what TikTok is, which is most of you, TikTok is a social media platform. And it's kind of like, depending on your age, it's like Facebook, but just videos and faster. It's like TikTok. Sorry, it's like, I don't have any of them. So, sorry, I'm butchering it. Anyways, it's little, quick little videos, and there's something called trends. So I remember when it first came out, it was like a video of someone, and they're just like, And that meant something. They were pointing to little word bubbles that would say like a phrase and then another phrase and then another phrase, and then they'd give like approval to it. That was early days TikTok. Am I right? No? I remember that. And then there was like dances that were like anyone can do. Like my 3-year-old daughter can do them. Like anyone can do a TikTok dance. But now there's one where a TikTok trend, where it'll be like a couple going out for dinner. And it's usually like a husband or a boyfriend and then his girlfriend or his wife. And it shows the perspective of the husband or boyfriend. And it's like he's thinking about every little thing that could go wrong. Like he's thinking about the exits. He's concerned about like the price. He's concerned about like who he has to stab. He is ready to go. And then it shows the perspective of like the wife or the girlfriend and just like having the time of her life. No care, no concern in the world. Just order another one, just happy as can be. That's kind of like this picture. The difference is we get to take on what he cares about. We get to learn what Jesus cares about. And we get to cast off the things that have burdened us in the past. The reality is, Zacchaeus, that financial thing was a burden for him. He cast that off. And then he got to take on what Jesus cared about. So we get an opportunity to walk in step with Jesus and learn. We get to learn the cadence. We get to learn what he cares about. As things that burden us and we care about, we get to give it to him and we get to take on what he has for us. I'm a parent of 2. I've mentioned that probably multiple times already. And my oldest daughter is 3.5. I want what's best for her. So sometimes I put her in situations that she needs to overcome and like kind of sink or swim. I'll give you an example. At home, I try to teach my daughter how to have like good manners. I try to teach her how to interact with people and like make friends. But then when we're at the park, it's time to put it into practice. So if there's like no kids there, I'll play with my daughter. It's weird not to. But if there's other kids, I'll take a step back. I'll sit on the bench and I'll let her make friends. I'll let her kind of struggle through that a little bit. When we were at the airport flying to Toronto this past week, my daughter, we were eating lunch at this like little jungle gym thing in the airport. And my daughter, there was another little boy, so she went and played. She's like, "Do you want to play tag, hide and go seek, freeze tag, whatever?" She like listed 4 things and the little boy was so confused. He's like, "Yeah." And so then my daughter was playing it and he was just kind of like following her. And then 3 more kids came and the same thing happened. And she's like, "Do you want to play freeze tag, whatever, blah, 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 hide and go seek?" "Yeah." And so they all played. It was pretty cute. But I want to see her in situations where she's forced to grow, where she has to grow. Unless there's like one time I was at the park and there was a little boy punching kids. Like, I'm going to kick that kid long before he comes to my daughter. There will be an issue with his parents. I will be in prison. Like, I'm not going to let a little boy punch my daughter. But I want her to go through some situations. In the same way that when we're walking shoulder to shoulder with Jesus, he wants us to get out of our depths. If we were only ever in a comfort zone, we wouldn't grow. Like even as a church, if we were only ever in our comfort zone, we wouldn't be able to give testimony of what's happening in Bologna or in Toronto. But we get to go out of our depths a little bit and see God do a good work. But with that can come storms. With that can come storms. So the third step of little faith is to call on Jesus' name when it gets too hard. Call on his name when it gets too hard. A few years ago, 2019, Tess and I were asked to pastor the downtown location of Vivid Church. And we said yes. Since we've been married, we've just endeavored to make walking with the Lord the biggest priority in our marriage. We want to honor him. We want to walk shoulder to shoulder in step with him. And this felt like one of those, like a little bit beyond us, but we're going to do it anyways. And so we walked shoulder to shoulder, shoulder and shoulder with him, and we took on the responsibility of that. And part of doing that is we wanted to set roots here in Vancouver. The Bible says where your treasures are, there your heart will be as well. So we wanted to buy an apartment here in Vancouver, which is like an audacious thing for anyone, let's be honest. So my wife finished university, and then we just started saving and saving and saving. And we stopped going out for lunch to Chipotle, which, by the way, if you are here after the service, we will have Chipotle up in the mezzanine. Welcome to church. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you. Make sure to come out for that. If you're saving for a place, that's the perfect place for you to be, because you get both. You get to save your money and you get Chipotle. So we were saving and saving and saving, and as the interest rates were skyrocketing, the prices kind of did a little bit of a dip. Not like a reasonable dip, a little dip. So it was like almost like breathing room again. It's like, okay, maybe we can. The first place that we put an offer in, we didn't get. Last year, I started working with the guy who ended up getting the place. He told me what they got it for. We weren't even in the same ballpark. It might have been like the equivalent of like we're looking for like an apartment and they've got like an acre. Like that's the gap. It was a huge gap. We were not prepared. Anyways, so finally there's like a little dip. We were locked in at a lower interest rate. Interest rates were skyrocketing. And we went to put a bid on a place. It was a Sunday morning, and what happened was texted the real estate agent. He told me, yeah, we'll look at it today. 5 minutes later, he told me it's actually sold already. I was like, not again. And our pre-approval was almost up. So that was kind of like what felt like our last shot at getting a place. So we're like, okay, we'll circle the wagons in a few years maybe and try this again. But then the next Sunday, the place came back up. I guess it had sold, but the person wasn't able to come up with financing, so it went back on the market. Same thing. Messaged the real estate agent. We saw it later that day, put in an offer like right away, and our offer was accepted. So we're like, okay, now we're cooking with fire. I think we just got a place. And as we're getting closer to the end, it's also like the week before Christmas, just so you guys know, for context. And we're flying to Ontario to visit my wife's family for Christmas. So things are like a little bit of a time crunch. We're gonna be gone soon. So I needed to get a piece of information from the CRA. My mortgage broker needed it the day before we flew out. So I try to log in. I can't log into the CRA account. So I call, and Willow's like, not yet won. So I'm playing with Willow on hold, I want to say for like 7 hours, even though it was probably only 90 minutes. But it felt like forever. Yeah. And finally the lady, hi, are you there? I'm like, oh yeah, I am. And she's like, okay, I need you to pull up some information. So Tess, do you mind passing me the laptop? And the lady's like, excuse me, someone else is with you? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, I've gone ahead and deleted your account. Deleted your account. Guys, I have put all the money I've ever had into this. Like, everything is in the deposit for this. Like, I'm lost without this. And so she deleted my account, and then proceeds to say, if you would like, I can send you a packet in the mail that will help you create a new account. If you would like. I was furious. I think I said like, I would like, yeah, you need to send that. And then I hung up the phone. I do remember I didn't say any choice words to her, because I hung up too quick, and then I threw my phone onto the bed like as hard as I could, and I was so angry, and I was so fearful, and I was so anxious, and I was so stressed out. And I remember my wife Tessa asking, what happened? Let me fill you in. And so my first response was like, are we gonna burn down the CRA? Like I know theoretically it's possible, but have we just been pushed over the edge? And God bless my wife. Little faith. She says, let's pray about it. Let's pray about it. So we prayed. I didn't pray, she prayed. And my attitude, what was going on the inside, nothing changed. I had to let my mortgage broker know. He said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Send in your most current pay stub and your like a letter of employment from today. So I sent that in, and he messaged back saying, hey, just so you know, you got a raise. I was like, oh, okay. And I looked at my letter of employment, and sure enough, I got like a 91 cent an hour raise. I was like, oh, that's not really... Man, I need a better job. That's how I felt. I was like, if my job is giving me a 91 cent an hour raise, how little do they think of me? That's how I felt. And so I'm just stewing, and I'm not in a good place. And he called back about an hour later and said, hey, that 91 cent an hour raise was all it took to satisfy the lender. Like, you're approved. Congratulations, you're getting a new house, or a new place, new little apartment, let's be honest. And it was incredible to see that. The fourth step of, we call on his name when we get out of our depth. That's the third step of little faith. And it goes into, when we see him come through, the next step is to be amazed. To be amazed. The last step of little faith is to be amazed. And the reality is, I was most amazed because I didn't deserve it. I was like Zacchaeus. Like, if you look at my heart, if you look at what was going on the inside, it wasn't pretty. Like, I was fearful, just like the disciples. I was stressed. I was anxious. I was like angry as can be. But Jesus took care of it. And so I couldn't help but be amazed, just like the disciples. Like, who is this that calms the sea, tells the sea and the waves to be still? And they are. That's how I felt. In living here in Vancouver, I don't know, the Brazilian couples, welcome. You're going to hear about these things called tsunamis that are supposed to hit every single year. They've never hit once since I've been here. 33 years in a row, so maybe I'm a good luck charm. But yeah, no tsunami yet. In Japan, tsunamis. And when tsunamis happen, sorry guys. When tsunamis happen, it churns up fish that are like from the bottom that are disgusting looking, and they come to the surface. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen any of those like nasty ones that look like basically like a parasite but bigger, and like, or the one with the dangly thing that with the light. Briar probably knows what that one's called because she's a biologist. But you see these nasty fish that come up to the surface and then they die. Storms that come from obedience to Jesus bring up the nasty things in our lives that need to get dealt with. So when Jesus says to the disciples, you have little faith, why are you so afraid? It's because it brought up some things. Like, they wouldn't have been shy about, oh, I was afraid. They wouldn't have been shy about that. I don't need to be shy about what was going on when I was in that storm. But I can't help but be amazed that Jesus intervened in that situation. I can't help but be amazed that he would choose to do that for me, someone who doesn't deserve it. Like, if you looked at my heart, it was ugly, but he chose to intervene. He used Tessa's little faith to call on his name, and then he did a work. And so that last step of little faith is to be amazed. And I'm going to be honest, when I'm in a place of amazement, you know what it makes me want to do? It makes me want to get back to the place where I draw near to Jesus again. And when I draw near to Jesus, you know what I want to do? I want to follow him. And when I follow him, I get out of my depths, and I need to call on his name. And when I call on his name and I see him do it again, I'm amazed. And it repeats. You go from little faith to great faith by seeing God come through again and again and again. Again, we talked about the disciples at the beginning. They went from being like just a ragtag group of teenage boys, essentially. Like, probably so much toots. And they went from that to flipping the world on its head. Like, we're here because of their little faith. We're here because they went from little faith to great faith, and we get to see the world changed. Our church, little faith, but we get to see God doing great things in other cities. We get to see God do great things here in Vancouver. I have little faith for a building. I have little faith to see what God's going to do generations from now. So we're going to take a moment and pray.